Hi, hometowners. Most of you know me, but for those who don't, I am Dana Bain. I am wife to Richard Bain and mom to Christian, Bryce, Xander, Gavin, and Brooklyn. I get really nervous being on video, but I was asked to do this. But I'm cheating this time. I'm going to have a couple of my children join me because they have questions that have been kind of weighing on their minds, and I thought that this was a good opportunity to answer their questions and also share with you guys what goes through our minds and how we deal with certain things that come up through this time of racial unrest. So Xander, I will call you over first. I want to say hi to the camera. Make sure you introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Xander Bain.
How old are you?
8,
What grade are you in?
3rd grade.
Awesome. All right, what questions do you have for me, buddy?
What school would a light skin go to?
And what time? What do you mean?
Like, back in the day when there was a bunch of protests and stuff.
Okay, so you're probably talking about the 50s and 60s, kind of like when grandma was growing up, or we'll go back a little further to when my grandmother was little. And to answer your question, it all depends actually, because you are considered biracial, which means you have an African American mom and your dad is white. Most of the time when that happened back in the days of slavery, those children were hidden away. So they didn't go to public school unless their skin was so light that you couldn't tell that there was any African American in them.
Oh.
It didn't always happen that way, but for the most part, that's what happened. Women like me who had children that were biracial, we had to hide that fact from the rest of the world because they would not have been happy about it. They would have gone after the dad or hurt me in ways that you're not going to hear about right now.
Okay.
Next question.
Were you ever treated bad because of the way of your skin color?
Unfortunately, yes. There have been times in my life where I've been called the N-word or I've just been treated differently because of who I am. And there have been times where even Dad was around and he witnessed it. I think there have been so many things that have happened. Like I can tell you a story or I could tell Dad a story and it didn't really click until we would go places together and he would start to notice it himself. And there have been times where people didn't know that Dad and I were together and they would treat him a certain way and treat me the total opposite. And I think that kind of opened his eyes to what really happens and how African Americans are just treated differently. Even if we're not necessarily being treated in a mean way, it's just been different. And the question is why? And that's a question that I have, that you have, that Dad has had. You know, we want to know why people even need to be treated differently. Why can't we just be treated the same, no matter what the color of our skin is? And I'm hoping, I'm praying, as I know that you are too, that we one day get to that place. Anything else?
Will my skin color ever change to the color of your skin color?
No. As you know, you have beautiful caramel skin.
Mom, in the NFL, you know what? I want to be in the NFL when I grow up.
And that'll be fun.
And in the NFL players with the color of your skin, like they're always just like, okay. When they sweat, it looks so cool.
Okay, I'm not really sure what that has to do with anything, but No, in the summertime, like when you are in the sun a lot, you tan, you get a little bit darker, but you won't get as, like, as I am. But you get close sometimes. So, but your skin color is a mixture of dads and moms, and so you're right there in the middle. You won't ever be as light as dad, and you won't ever be as dark as me. But that's okay, because you're beautiful. Any more questions for me?
Nope.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Xander. I really appreciate you helping me out with this.
Yep.
All right. And now I think we have Bryce, who has a couple of questions as well.
Peace.
Oh, wow. Okay, I won't read ahead.
Yeah, don't read ahead.
Can
Okay.
you take your hoodie off and introduce yourself, please?
My hair is bad right now. My hair's messed up.
All right.
Okay. My name is Bryce, and I am a freshman at Kennedy. I'm the second oldest, so. All right, my first question is, do you ever feel that people look at our family weird or in a disrespectful way?
Oh, absolutely.
I should say, when do you see it the most? That's better.
Well, when I see it the most, that's kind of difficult to answer because when we're out in public, especially like when we're at the state fair, when there's a lot of people around, I do notice that people look at us in a weird way. I try to not assume why they're looking at us. Sometimes I just, even if I know they mean it in a negative way, I say to myself, you know what? They're looking at us because we're a big family and we're beautiful.
Because you make us wear matching shirts all the time.
Not all the time.
Most of the time. All right. Is that it? Okay. Second question is, when Christian first got his license, I saw that you were not as excited as I thought you would be. And why is that?
Christian is our oldest. He will be turning 19 this week, and that is true. When he got his driver's license, I was really excited for him getting to that rite of passage, but I was very apprehensive about him driving and being in a car without me, driving around with his friends and just never knowing what could happen if he's ever stopped by the police. It's a conversation that we've had for years, even with you, just things that you can say and cannot say in the presence of a police officer. And it's aside from always having respect for authority, it's as a black male, there's just certain ways that you have to act. Your hands always have to be on the steering wheel in view. You always have to ask for permission if you need to reach into your glove box or into your pocket to get something. And you just have to make sure that in no way, shape, or form you are riling up the police officer. And it just makes me nervous because there are times when I've been stopped by the police and I have been treated very, very poorly by them, and it's unfortunately something that we have to deal with. And I get mad sometimes that other people don't necessarily have that problem. I think it's an unfair, unjust circumstance, and again, it's something that, as you guys know, we pray about all the time because I want to live in a world, I want to live in a Bloomington where I don't have to worry about what's going to happen to my children when they are out and about, whether it be just someone treating them unkindly or, like I said, falling in the wrong path of law enforcement. It's just something as a mother that I've worried about and thought about since you guys were babies. And I don't regret having any of you. I don't regret the circumstances of having biracial children because, again, I think it is such a wonderful, wonderful mixture of God's creations. And
I'm pretty wonderful, aren't I?
oh my gosh, really? So, okay, I lost my train of thought. Any more questions, Bryce?
Yeah, I actually do have one more.
Yes.
Were you treated differently when you moved to Minnesota? or, well, I don't really know how to explain it. If that makes sense, though. Like,
It makes a lot of sense because I grew up in the South. I grew up in Florida and I lived in Atlanta, Georgia for about 8 years before I moved to Minnesota. And I always tell people in the South, there was no guesswork that needed to happen. You knew who was on your side and you knew who wasn't. So there wasn't anything that you had to figure out. You knew who to stay away from and you knew who would have your back if it was ever necessary. When I moved to Minnesota, the difference was people would smile in your face. They'd sit next to you in church. It could even be a coworker, and you would never know how they really felt on the inside until this beautiful technology that has come about, like Facebook and Twitter and all those things. We now have learned how people really feel. And when I first moved to Minnesota, I had to deal with a lot of assumptions about me that people were making, and they made me feel really uncomfortable. Christian was a baby when we moved here, and I can't even count how many times I was asked if I was his nanny. And I'd have to correct people and say, nope, I am his mom, had this one myself, he is mine. And I would just get this shocked look. And as the years went on, I just thought that that was really odd because I started to notice that the biracial population here was rather large. What I figured out afterwards was I'm kind of the minority with that, as I am the African American part of the equation. So I think that's why a lot of people just made assumptions and were shocked to find out that I'm the mama. And a lot of people would make assumptions because of the car that I drove at the time. I used to drive a pretty fancy SUV, and they would make assumptions as to why I was driving that car, how I was affording that car, and those kind of things just made me feel just very offended. I never understood why that even mattered in the first place and why I couldn't just have those things on my own because I'm a very hard worker. But
yeah, makes sense. Those are my questions, though.
those are all of it. All right. Well, I don't know that this really went deep enough to really help you guys if you did have any questions like this, but I want to let you know that I am open to answering any questions that you may have, and I hope that this at least opened you up to think of some questions of your own to be able to come to me and our multi-ethnic group at church. So again, I'm Dana, and I am very blessed to be at Hometown, and will continue to pray for racial equity and equality and peace. Thank you, guys.